Welcome back. This is Monty once again. We're doing a reactionary type of podcast this morning, mainly because of the massive sell off. I think at least a 700-point drop that we experienced in Bitcoin. There's no fundamental issues with Bitcoin. Seems like we had a massive whale that came in and sold off a bunch of Bitcoin, probably $250 million worth. I think this is probably the second or third time in a week. We really need to have in place something to counter these particular acts of manipulation. I think basically what we're looking at here is the equivalent of having a plunge-protection team. For those who don't know what that means, in the traditional markets, it's sort of like a conspiracy that's been thrown around. I think it's a lot of truth to it. More than likely, in the traditional markets, when the stock market starts selling off to a great extent, various administrations, going back to who knows how far back, 2 or 3 at least administrations, 4 maybe, they've stepped in to counter significant sell-offs in traditional stocks and the stock markets. What they do is they just buy back. They infuse liquidity. The federal government, maybe alongside with the Treasury and some other people, they step in and they provide a backstop, so to speak, so that the stocks during a moment of crisis, they don't fall too much. So in addition to circuit breakers on the stock market, you have a plunge protection team that actually steps in and they provide tons of liquidity in the regular stock markets to keep those stocks from dropping too much. It's called the plunge protection team. We have some information on our website. You can just do a search in the search bar using in our articles. We have tons of blogs and podcasts. Just check out the plunge protection team or the article that mentions it. Anyway, I think in the cryptocurrency space, we typically can benefit from some of these tools. This is one tool that I think we need to take a look at. Having the equivalent of a plunge protection team, and also having a legal defense fund. More and more going forward, as we have to approach Washington and congressmen and senators and such, we want to have a legal defense fund. Sort of with, there's one company that's been getting into trouble lately, Kik, something like that. They're trying to put together at least a $5 million legal defense fund, and it's sort of controversial, but nonetheless, that's a mechanism or a methodology that corporate America has been using forever. You have the Jewish Legal Defense Fund, you have animal legal defense funds, you have various legal defense funds. This is not a new concept, and there's absolutely no reason why the cryptocurrency space, our community shouldn't have a legal defense fund. So if you combine the concept, I think, of having a legal defense fund for our political agendas and certain things we need to do, just to make sure that the various federal agencies and even state agencies, just so we can get their ear, just like corporate America does, we want to have that legal defense fund. Then also combining that with the idea of having a plunge protection team, I think we could very, very much remedy the problems associated with having a small market that's relatively unrepresented and not very much liquidity. So again, going forward, these are some tools that I think are essential to making sure that we're taken seriously, especially when you have certain whales who are repeating the same tactics over and over again, and they're taking advantage of this illiquid marketplace that we have. That $700 discount that person got for manipulating our market, we could have very well countered that by buying up a bunch of Bitcoin for the legal defense fund and using it for lobbying and special interest causes, just like corporate America does. So anyway, just something we wanted to get out there. Me and my wife have been talking about it. trying to decide what's the appropriate mechanism for getting the word out. I think we need to approach all the heavy influencers. If you can get the ear of Coinbase, Andreas Antonopoulos, Trace Mayer, what is it? There's various people out there that we want to run this by and make sure that we discuss it in a serious manner. You name it. Just find out who the most heaviest influencers that you can think of, in addition to the ones that I mentioned. I know there's lots of others, but I just can't think of them all of them right now. But nonetheless, circulate this podcast, write up your own articles, find some information about legal defense funds, particularly as it pertains to cryptocurrencies especially, and the Plunge-Protection team concept as that applies to the traditional markets. And let's figure out why we don't have those tools, and so that we can remedy some of this market manipulation and the lack of representation, particularly in Washington, D.C. with the legal defense fund approach. Anyway, we just thought we'd do a quick podcast and get the word out because it's timely news. We're still haven't recovered completely. Last time I looked, we were at $7,800. That's down from around $9,200. The 92, I think we got up to $9,100, $9,200 per Bitcoin, and we need to consider that. See, the Nasdaq fell into correction territory as of last night. So basically, in the traditional space, they don't want us to be a viable alternative when the traditional fiat economy falls apart as it is now, with manufacturing indexes falling for the fourth or fifth month in a row, malls closing at a very exponential rate. What else? The housing sales falling probably for the fourth or fifth time in a row on a monthly basis. You name it. There's significant problems in the traditional space. So again, as stocks and such, as they deteriorate, led by the Nasdaq, and we're going to have some temporary fluctuations, but the overall trend, especially in the stock market, is that the bear cycle is starting up, and that 10-year run that we all here talked about so much, that's coming to an end. And that equity has to go somewhere. We want that equity to go into the cryptocurrency space. So when these big whales come in, they're intentionally trying to make Bitcoin not look very attractive, because when they manipulate the price and we get a $700 drop per Bitcoin, that scares a lot of people. But this is a very viable alternative, because the last 4 or 5 years in a row, we've been the best performing asset class, bar none. So make sure you guys understand these trends are in our favor. We need to strike while the iron is hot. We need to make sure that people understand the traditional economy is falling apart, and the cryptocurrency space is indeed the most viable, attractive going forward. So let's counter what these whales are doing. Let's counter what the FUD spreaders are saying. Let's counter what the legislators who don't understand crypto, let's counter what they're doing and saying, and hopefully get the word out that this is where the action is. This is where the action is going to be in the cryptocurrency space. So we look forward to your questions, comments, criticism when we post this podcast, and get the word out, spread the podcast, come up with your own content relating to this subject, and let's try to get Jimmy Song. Let's try to get Trace Mayer. Let's try to get Andreas Antonopoulos. Let's try to get Coinbase. Let's try to get whoever, BitMEX, Bitfinex. I don't care who. Let's just get the word out and see if we can figure out how to fix the issues. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.